Hello and welcome back to the Wheelknowers Formula One podcast. This is Josh. I'm joined as always by Sam. We're back. It's race week again in Formula One. It's been a long off season, not long by F1 standards, but still long nonetheless. How did you enjoy your off season, Sam? And are you excited for race week this week?
I am, yeah. I'm thrilled to be back. It's like you mentioned, not the longest off season, but that's all right with me because I'm so excited to see how these new regs play out, who's on top, who's at the bottom, and yeah, I can't wait to get into this, get into our predictions, and see how we finish up.
Yeah, that's going to be the bulk of today's episode is those predictions for the 2026 teams and drivers. And we're going to start off with the drivers. I feel like these predictions could be all over the place by the end of the year. We're, just with the nature of the new regs, you never really know how things are going to end up. So we'll reevaluate at the end of the year, see how far off we really were from it all. But I feel like, everything is kind of up for grabs in terms of positions, but I feel like the top, four teams and the bottom two, at least to me, are pretty secure in some order at least. And then that middle, the midfield teams are just all over the place. So it could be way off on some of those.
Yeah, the midfield was the hardest part by far for me to predict. The top is tough too, just decoding those top four teams, seeing who's really number one and where everyone stands at the moment certainly wasn't easy either. But that like 9 through 16 in my drivers rankings and 5 through 8 in the constructors, I switched probably 100 times. So I'm looking forward to getting into that and seeing where we both landed.
Yeah, it was tough. I kind of just went through it. Hoped that it went well. I made minimal revisions, but I just kind of went with my gut on these. So we're gonna see how it goes. But we'll get right into it here with the drivers in 22nd position. I have Lance Stroll from Aston Martin. We don't really know. Aston Martin seems really far off at the moment. I expect that they'll be able to kind of make the updates that they need throughout the season. I feel like there's going to be a lot of the pace and the positions of the teams from the start of the season to the end is going to be just absolutely wild. And I feel like Aston Martin, they should make some inroads, but I just don't know if Lance is going to be mentally there by the time we get to that point in the season. I feel like he's going to be really discouraged from the slow start that Aston Martin's going to have, and so I have Lance Stroll in last place, behind the other two teams, the rest of the drivers, some of their two teams that I have down at the bottom.
First of all, I love the boldness to not put a Cadillac driver in last, really living up to our name as the premier Cadillac F1 podcast.
Well, I just thought Lance is just going to be so defeated. There's not going to be any hope left for the lad by like 3 races in. And part of it too is maybe he just quits. I mean, that's certainly part of the analysis going into this.
Yeah, actually, I don't know if you've seen this because it just came out within about an hour ago, but Nui was having his first press conference in Australia with Watanabe, I think is how you pronounce his name, the Honda rep. And they were talking about the car and limiting their race laps. And they said Alonso can do no more than 25 laps and Stroll can do no more than 15 without risking permanent nerve damage.
To their bodies?
Yes. Because the vibration on the car is so bad.
Oh no. It's worse than we thought.
That they can't even make it through half a race. They did say Nui said he thought the chassis could be as good as 5th and that they have hopes of being up front at some point this season. But it does not sound like they're going to finish this week in Australia, either driver.
That's truly throwing Honda just straight under the bus with that comment. I think the part that I designed could be 5th. I mean, but I don't know what the engine people are doing.
Yeah, I mean, they brought Nui in to be better than fifth, but at least
That
you
is
could say
true.
you're top of the midfield, and like that's not a total embarrassment,
Yeah.
uh, uh, to not even finish the race, man.
Yeah.
That's wow. Um,
Well, I
s-
thought they weren't going to finish the race because of like car things, not because of risk to their bodies. I didn't think it'd
yeah,
be health issues that held them back, but it seems like it's that bad.
well, it is. It's like it's so bad. It says so the vibration of the chassis. This is Newey's quote. The vibration into the chassis is causing a few reliability problems, including mirrors and taillights falling off. So they can't even keep the car together for an
See,
entire
that's
race.
that's why I think Lance Stroll's going to be last. Like, I mean, I get it; they're gonna get better. Like, they can't get worse. But at the same time, like the car won't stay together for an entire race distance. Like it will literally fall apart.
Well, if he does retire at some point in the season, I hope he makes it to Canada and we can give him a proper send off in front of. I think there's a Stroll grandstand there, so
They should let
he could.
them replace their Honda engine with somebody else for Canada.
I know, give him Mercedes
Yeah.
or somebody. Yeah. Man. Well, I'll get to him shortly. I kind of want to almost switch this now after reading that, but my original 22, I'll just stick with it. Unfortunately, it's Valtteri Bottas. I think I'm really torn on these Cadillac drivers. Which one to go with here? Which one I think is going to win the battle. They actually, I don't have all the odds in front of me, but I looked briefly at the odds, teammate versus teammate, this morning, and they're both minus 110, effectively even odds to beat each other. I think it really is that neck and neck. I
Mhm.
just, the only reason I lean Perez is he has so much experience in a car that's maybe further down, down a midfield level car.
Yeah.
Bottas had some nice run at Williams, and then he was in the Mercedes, the best car on the grid for a number of years. So maybe Perez, with a little midfield witchcraft or something, finds his way to a couple extra points. But yeah, I love Valtteri. He's going to be probably the guy I'm rooting for the most this season because we
Yeah.
love him as a guy and we're rooting for Cadillac. But yeah, I've got Valtteri 22nd, just as a matter of the car and maybe being slightly behind Perez.
Yeah, let's stay with him because I have Botas 21st. I think I agree. I think Perez is gonna win the battle of the second driver, although you could say Botas is gonna win the battle of the second driver because he's gonna finish behind Perez. So he may be the ultimate second driver. Uh, but yeah, I pretty much all the same reasons that you gave. I just think Perez, I don't know. I just feel like he's gonna gel a little bit better with the car. There's not really any like data to back that up, obviously, but I just feel like Perez might. We might not even get any points out of Cadillac, so it might be like he just snuck in for a 12th somewhere, and the best Valtteri could do was 13th or something. Uh, but yeah, I think it's going to be a tight battle between those two. I could see it going either way, but I have Botas 21st, uh, which gets me or sorry, who do you have in 21st?
So I have Lance Stroll in 21st, and I feel better about that after reading what I just read. But,
Yeah.
a part of me, honestly, about half of it before I read that was, just wanting to not have Cadillac 21, 22, wanted to have a little bit of faith in them. And then also just even, before today, we knew what a disaster Aston Martin was,
Mhm.
or at least on some level we knew. And like you said, I just don't see there's a world where maybe second half of the season they're able to compete for points at least. Maybe obviously we both have Alonso a little further up. Maybe he can, salvage a couple points here and there later in the season. I just don't see. I mean, Stroll's gotten kind of destroyed every season against Alonso. Last year, he actually started decent,
Mhm.
and still ended up with a little more than half of Alonso's points, 24 nothing Alonso in qualifying. I mean, I
Yeah.
just don't see it. If the car is that bad, I don't see him extracting. Maybe he gets like a wet weather points or something once the car
Mhm.
gets a little better, but I don't see him really extracting much out of this already bad car.
Yeah, he does turn into prime Ayrton Senna in the wet. So we do know that maybe he'll find something there if the
Mhm.
car can stay together for the whole race. Uh, but I'll go to the next Cadillac driver in 20th in P20 for me, Sergio Perez. The Cadillac as a whole, I think, is going to be like a fine car. I don't think it's going to be like a monstrous, terrible, like, piece of machinery. I think I mean, it might have tractor tendencies, but for a first year car, I think we can allow that. Maybe Perez scraps it to a point. Maybe it's just a P11, P12 something. Uh, but yeah, I think it's gonna be tight between the two Cadillac guys. I think we've been over how we think that battle is gonna go, and I like Perez. I think he's gonna rebound from how those Red Bull years ended for him, and kind of he might not even score a point this year, but I think he will have some pretty good finishes that kind of show that what happened in that Red Bull was due to some things beyond his control in the end. So I know P20 won't be a huge victory for Sergio Perez, who was most recently driving a Red Bull that was fighting for constructors championships and winning races here and there with him behind the wheel. But I think he'll look back at the season and be pretty proud of what they've gotten done there in the Cadillac in their first year.
Yeah, I love that description of an F1 car. It might have tractor tendencies. It's a good way to describe it.
I
Uh,
mean, it's probably going to be a little bit off the pace. Like, well, we're
yeah,
just going to be honest. But
yeah. I mean, yeah, I have Checo in 20th as well, so I'm right there with you.
at least it's not falling apart.
Yeah, I'm thinking maybe he scavenges a point here and there, maybe a 10th,
Mhm.
maybe a ninth, and that's enough to get him ahead of both Botas and Stroll.
Mhm.
Don't have much faith beyond that. This is kind of 20 to 22 is kind of its own little
Yeah.
tier in the bottom for me.
Yeah.
Not that I think Alonso is going to go have hundreds of points or anything, but these three I think are going to be potentially on a tier of their own here,
Yeah.
down compared to the rest of the field.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And that takes us to P19, where I have Fernando Alonso. I feel like you have him there as well, just based off the conversation we've been having. Uh, I think we may see some absolutely mega performances out of Alonso, where he's literally pushing the car across the finish line outside of the vehicle, just to get maybe like a P12 or something. But I think it's gonna be hard trudging for Alonso. Um, and really, what I think is kind of the bigger picture here with Alonso is what happens beyond this year. If he finishes in P19, like I have him projected, like I think you have him projected, I don't think he'll be back at Aston Martin next year. I think he'll either be retired or he'll be somewhere else. So if the season does go this badly for Fernando and Aston Martin as a whole, I do not see him returning next year.
Yeah, I actually, not gonna lie. When I first wrote out these rankings, I had Alonso a little higher. I had a little more faith in them, scavenging something up. But at this point, I've got him in 19th as well. And we could see a couple points scavenged by the end of the season. But I agree with you. I think that there's going to be really the whole fallout from this Aston Martin situation is going to be fascinating. We already talked about Lance could be ready to move on from F1 after this. Fernando as well. I mean, this could really, knock the spirit out of him, I guess. I hope it doesn't, because he's a guy you can tell loves racing pretty much more than almost anything. So I would love to see him maybe get another chance somewhere else next year, or maybe Aston recovers enough this year that they have some confidence going into next year. But this is just it's sad to see Alonso this low in our rankings, because I think if we're going off pure ability, he would be much higher even at his current age. Not even talking about prime Alonso.
Mhm.
Is just such a bad situation that having him 19th is pretty much just a hope that he can pull off a couple miracles in the way that the guys behind him can't.
Yeah, I think just the whole thing's Fernando summing him up is if they had that P5 chassis with a P5 engine, let's say, like Nui was discussing, um, I wouldn't have him any lower than ninth. I think he would be maxing out whatever that is. So, uh, yeah, I think that it's just a product of the car he's in, why he's so low. I wish he'd be higher. I'd love to put him higher, but and it could be a part where at the end of the year he is consistently fighting around the points, ninth, 10th, 11th, but all we have to go off of right now is what we've seen so far, and that is just it's I mean the car can't even allegedly go 25 laps without Alonso just collapsing. So yeah, not good. Also on that 25 lap for Alonso, 15 lap for Stroll thing, Lance Stroll should be ashamed of himself for that. You're letting this 40-plus-year-old do 25 laps while you can only do 15 before you can't take the car anymore. That's
So
disgraceful. That's
so
terrible.
apparently, someone said in a follow up tweet or something that it was related to Lance's wrist problems from last season, and that
Mm,
it was because of that. I don't know if he never fully recovered or what's going on there, but um,
that should
if
be recovered by now. Yeah.
yeah, I was gonna say, unless he's got some sort of arthritis, I don't know. I don't even know
Fernando
what
should
it's.
have the arthritis.
Yeah, I know.
Of,
So
of the two.
yeah, it's just not great.
Yeah.
I don't wanna see either one of them get permanent nerve damage,
No.
frankly.
No. No. Definitely not. Yeah. All right, let's get out of the bottom two and get into some people who might have a chance at doing something fun this year. Uh in P18, I have Arvin Lindblad. The only rookie in this class. Who knows what we're going to get out of the Racing Bulls this year? Um, I I feel like they consistently for the last few years will show up really strong at some tracks, be fighting even for P5, P6 at times, and then there's tracks where they're just non-existent. Really interested to see how he does as the sole rookie in this class. Last year felt like one of the better rookie classes we've had in a long time after a lot of misses on young guys. I feel like recently. Um, I don't know too much about Lindblad to be 100% honest. But I just can't put him too much higher just because I don't have a ton of faith in that Racing Bulls and he is a rookie. I think he'll get some points and he'll have his moments. But I think it'll be kind of a typical rookie season in a less than stellar car. So for that reason, I have him P18.
Yeah. Oh, I promise we won't keep agreeing so much throughout the rest of this, but I also have Arvid Lindblad at 18. I think, for one, obviously being the only rookie kind of puts you on the back
Mhm.
foot. We did see some great rookie performances last year, so
Mhm.
that certainly does not count you out at all. We saw Isaac Hadjar, Ollie Behrman come in. Kimi Antonelli had some real highlights. So it's not out of the realm for Lindblad to come in and be
Mhm.
great this year. I just think, honestly, part of it is being an unknown quantity as a rookie, and part of it is just not. I don't want to say I don't have faith in Racing Bulls, because they're a solid team for what they are, but I just have more faith in the teams around them in the midfield. I think
Yeah.
they either have more resources and better ability to grow,
Mhm.
or they are in a better point with their car currently than Racing Bulls are. So
Mhm.
I just feel like they're uh, it's going to be tough sledding for them. Not nearly as much as Cadillac and Aston apparently, but it's going to be tough sledding for them for consistent points, I think, and
Mhm.
it's going to make it tough on Arvid Lindblad this year. So I've got him P18 as well.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the with Ford coming in now as the manufacturer for the engine manufacturer for Red Bull and Racing Bulls, I think a lot of that focus is going to be on maximizing the Red Bulls this year and using the data from both teams to get that car and that engine in the right place. So maybe in the years to come, they'll kind of filter some of that down to the Racing Bulls guys as well with those Ford Red Bull Ford engines. But I think that's another factor at play here too for the Racing Bulls guys.
Yeah, I agree. I'll go ahead since I've got the other Racing Bulls guy at 17, Liam Lawson. I don't know where you have him, but uh, for me, Lawson's a guy. So is my number 16, but I won't jump ahead. They're two guys to me that are really on the hot seat this year. Lawson's a guy that has certainly had his highlights in F1, but he's also had a lot of ups and downs, and losing to a rookie teammate last year in Isaac Hadjar fairly convincingly as well. I think he really needs to step up and beat Arvid Lindblad convincingly this year. Obviously, I think he will beat him, but not by much. And, I'm worried for his future in F1 if he doesn't really come out strong this year, just given this is he has had a weird career. He's had the two partial seasons and then his only full season. He had the Red Bull demotion, but he will have had plenty of racing experience by the end of this season. So this is a big moment for Liam Lawson. And yeah, I'm fascinated to see whether he's going to be able to deliver or if he'll sort of be back with Lindblad, sort of on the same pace.
Yeah, so based on what you said, I think we're going to have the same two guys, 16, 17, just in opposite order. So I'll get to Lawson in a minute, but I have Franco Colapinto in P17. I know some people are pretty high on the Alpine, and I know that car was terrible last year. I mean, they literally posted multiple times that they had essentially given up on social media at the end of last season. Uh, so I get that part where the form coming in to this year isn't great. But there was also not a single point really last year where I thought Colapinto was really outdoing what the car was capable of. We saw that at times with Gasly. Uh, and, I get it. Colapinto's still a young guy. Gasly's way more experienced. I rate him very highly as a driver out there. One of definitely the top 8 guys on just like pure pace and driving ability, in my opinion. So that's a hard task going up against him and delivering, the same level. But yeah, I don't think that we're going to see a ton out of Colapinto this year. Again, I just feel like the vibes aren't great there. Obviously, it's his fault why the car was so bad last year. If you watch Drive to Survive, you know that. He's the problem. He was the problem. He is the problem, allegedly. Uh, it's definitely not the car. The car obviously was fantastic. Colapinto just stinks. No, I'm joking, but yeah, I think he'll. I don't think this year is going to be great for him, but also I don't think he's going to have a lot to say about it again this year, just because of I don't think Alpine's going to be another step up from what they were last year.
Yeah, I don't know whether that was just for the cameras because it's Flavio, or if that's really the way he talked outside of the Netflix show as well. But he really handed it to Franco, and was very blunt to say the least.
Dude, Flavio's going for the Helmut Marko honorary award, I think. The Helmut Marko Memoriam Award with
Yeah,
that little clip. I mean, good gracious. How unlikable are some of these guys?
I know, and I mean, Flavio has quite the history throughout
Yeah.
his time in the sport. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Anyways,
Yeah.
so my 16, Colapinto is actually a good shout as well, as far as a driver that's kind of on the hot seat this year. So, but he's not who I had at 16.
Oh, you went a different way.
I had Esteban Ocon.
Okay.
At some point this year, I'm going to figure out his pronunciation. I've heard it like 5 different ways: Ocon, Ocon, all kinds of stuff, and I feel like I'm switching it all the time.
Yeah.
But I'm going to go
Just
with
say SD Bestie.
I was literally, the words are coming out of my mouth. I'm just going to go with SD Bestie here at
Yeah.
16. This is a guy who kind of had a unceremonious into his time at Alpine. Got booted out of the team before Abu Dhabi, and then
He's the problem.
yeah, maybe. And then he comes to Haas last year, and Ollie really kind of, I don't want to say wipes the floor with him, because it was close, but Ollie comes in and gets some more impressive results, and wins that teammate battle as a rookie. And Alcon's a guy that I believe is going on year 10 in the sport. I mean, you know, at this point, if Ali is able to take care of him again, I think he's going to be really on the chopping block. There's some impressive drivers coming up through the Ferrari Driver Academy. Camara, the Brazilian F3 champion, moving up to F2 this year. There's a couple other young guys, a couple of Japanese guys as well, that they have right now as reserve drivers. I'm sure that Toyota would love to get those guys in the seat. So I just think right now, SD Bestie is kind of potentially in the crosshairs here, and I think he's going to struggle a little bit this season again. Not necessarily a disaster season, but not good enough probably to keep him around for the long-term future.
Yeah. Do you think, speaking of, where they go beyond this year, if they give Esteban the boot, I know Yuki has always kind of had those Honda ties. Do you think maybe with A, the way the Honda engine looks right now, and B, the fact that it was always kind of a Red Bull Honda thing, and now that Honda's not with Red Bull anymore, it might give him an opening to, become a Toyota guy and use that connection for Haas? I could see that seat possibly being an option for a guy like that as well.
Potentially. I do think something we have to consider, not to go back to my boys in green, but if the Aston Martin thing really tanks this year, but they keep Honda around for some reason,
Yeah.
Yuki could end up in one of those seats next
Yeah.
year. Lance leaves, Fernando leaves, both of them leave. So, I mean, that's certainly on the table though as well. I don't know what the relationship is like there between Yuki and Toyota, but I could certainly see that being on the table.
Yeah, I just think he might not want to do the Honda route if it stays like this, but if he has those ties and it gets him a seat, then I mean it might be worth it. In P16, I have Liam Lawson. You already touched on him. I feel like he's still a rookie, to be honest. I know he's not. He's been partially in like 3 different seasons now. If you're a golf fan, it's like how you feel Jordan Spieth has won like 15 Masters, but he's only won it once. It's kind of the same thing. I feel like Lawson's still a rookie, even though he's like entering his 4th year. And I got to get out of that mindset because I still view him as like, oh, he's a rookie. He's got to learn. He still needs his time. He's had his time at this point, so he's really got to step up and perform now. Like you said too, getting waxed by Hadjar last year, not good. He needs to really outperform Lindblad this year to keep his seat around. And even that, I mean, I just don't know with where I have him in P16 and Lindblad in P18. I don't know if there's going to be like a huge points gap there, just with the points on offer that I think Racing Bulls is going to be able to really take advantage of anyways. So I'm not sure he's going to have that big gap in points. If you have, the head to head is a wide gap, then maybe that keeps him around. But yeah, I'm just not expecting much from the Racing Bulls, and that's why I have Lawson down in 16th. I think he's a good driver. I think he still, has his mistakes, has his issues, but I do. I He's one of those guys I just hope stays in the sport because I think his attitude is pretty additive, whether you like him or you don't. I think him being out there and saying some of the things he says and just not being afraid to take other people on, I think is a good thing in the end. So uh, I hope he sticks around past this year, but we're kind of zooming through the hot seat guys right now in our P18 to or P17 to P15 here.
Yeah, I'd really love Lawson to stick around too. He definitely it's always good to have the one midfield guy that sort of antagonizes the others in a
Yeah.
way that Kevin Magnuson used to. Is a
Yeah.
guy that's aggressive, willing to get his elbows out. I would
Mhm.
love to see him in NASCAR or some series like that if F1 doesn't end up working out for him long term.
Yeah.
See him become the next SVG or something. That would be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm just in the same boat there with you. It's very odd. He's really done about a season and a half worth of races, but to do two like partial 6, 7 race runs to get dumped by Red Bull after two races, this will be his first normal F1 season. So yeah,
As long as he doesn't get dumped or move up to Red Bull again, who knows? Who
exactly.
knows what will happen this year?
I think that would be the craziest timeline is if he ended up back at Red Bull,
Yeah.
but I'd be worried for what happened to Isaac at that point.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah. So that's kind of where I'm at in Lawson. Same boat, potential hot seat guy there.
Yeah. Since you had him in P16, I'll go to my P15, Esteban Ocon. And just kind of continue talking about him. Uh, I kind of am in a similar boat as you. He's very much on the hot seat in my opinion, because he is way more experienced than Colapinto and Lawson. Like you said, he's entering what he's pretty much had a decade in the sport now, so he can't be getting demolished out there by Behrman, which I think he will this year. To be honest, I think Behrman's a very good driver, and I just don't think this Esteban and this SD Bestie and Haas kind of thing is. I never really saw it working from the start. It just feels like two kind of polar opposites in terms of a fit. I don't love the fit. Uh, and beyond this, I'm not sure Ocon gets another shot. I mean, maybe he does somewhere if he can. I'm not sure what his like financial backing is, so maybe he has that in his back pocket. I'm not sure, but uh, yeah, some of these guys also, it feels like when they are in the series for long enough, they just kind of stay there no matter what until it's like really obvious that they no longer deserve a shot. So yeah, that's why I'm gonna go Ocon here, but um, I just don't think it's gonna be a great year for him, and I think Haas, him and is not a great fit. I think Behrman's gonna do much better.
Yeah, I'm right there with you on SD Bestie. I think he could stick around in the sport for a little while in some sort of reserve role if he wanted to. I think he's a very good driver to sort of
Mhm.
judge the baseline against. I think I've
Yeah,
talked about that before. He's sort of like the wins above replacement driver, kind of the baseline for a solid F1 driver.
yeah,
Certainly has not had his best last couple seasons, but I think he could stick around. He's reliable enough with the car, not a guy that's going to go out and badmouth in the press or whatever.
mhm,
Like he's reliable and dependable enough. I think he could stick around in some role, but I do think he's under a lot of pressure this season to deliver and find some points for Haas, especially if Haas has good pace, which it
mhm.
looks like they might based on their shakedown and their testing.
Yeah, he's a pro. I'm just not sure he's fast enough right now to stick around. He's got all those attributes, like you said, of uh, he's PR trained at this point. He's got the experience. So yeah, sticking around, I think, is definitely an option. Just and he also has the total wolf thing, so he might become a Mercedes reserve driver or something, which is I could definitely see happening
Yeah.
uh, moving forward. Who's your P15?
So I went back and forth on this one. I'm gonna go with Gabriel Bortoleto in
Okay.
P15. Uh, I've been very torn on Audi what my expectations are for them. I've seen some really promising stuff reported about the race pace, and then I've also seen a lot of the people who, I don't want to use the term experts, but like the people who are really plugged in saying that they're maybe eighth or ninth right now, and not really up there. So I don't really know what to believe. Just another team in the midfield that I'm kind of iffy on. He did do very well against Nico Hulkenberg last year for a rookie, considering it was 12-11 in race results. The points were definitely more lopsided than that 51-19, but I still believe in him. I still believe he's got a lot of talent. I just think Nico is a really, really good driver, maybe the most underrated in the sport, or at least maybe top three. And that's kind of why I have Gabrielle a little lower and kind of in no man's land here where he could be 4 spots higher or 4 spots lower. And I wouldn't be shocked. I just ended up with him at P14.
Yeah, this is kind of our first bigger sort of disagreement. I'll get to Bortoletto later, but I just have a little bit of I guess I'm a little bit higher on Audi than you are at the moment. But yeah, that's just the whole midfield thing is you have no idea how this is going to go. I wouldn't be surprised if what we've been talking about with Alpine or Haas or Racing Bulls were kind of near the faster of the midfield, or some of the guys that I have being up there. So it wouldn't shock me either way with how this is going to go. P14 for me is Alex Albon. He had a really good start to the season last year. Then Carlos kind of caught up to him. I still think he's very talented. I think he's proven that over the last few years. What he's done in the Williams just really kind of over exceeds expectations that for what we'd expect with Williams. I think Williams has gotten a lot better in the last few years, so he's had those opportunities more often. But you see him pop up where it's like, okay, that weekend was very, very impressive. And then some weekends he's kind of a little bit off the pace. But I think generally speaking, he's a really solid driver. I just have him 14th because I think Sainz is going to be a little bit better than him. But I still really do think Albon's one of the better drivers we have out there, and kind of just a true wheelman. Just kind of keeps to himself and kind of does his own thing, and has been pretty successful since whatever happened with him at Red Bull. So yeah, I think he's proven himself up to this point, but it's more of a Williams thing, I guess. I think this is just kind of where they're going to slot in more than an Albon thing.
Yeah, I'll get to Albon in a little bit. I think that's going to be a fascinating teammate battle this year between him and Sainz, after they were sort of back and forth yin and yang last year, with one starting way better, Albon, of course, and then Sainz's big comeback. For me, I've got in P14, I've got Franco Colapinto, and I think I'm a little bit higher in general on Alpine than you are. I honestly, I was wondering if I put Colapinto too low, because he did improve last year against Pierre Gasly later in the season. It was only 11-7 in the teammate battle, not quite a blowout. You see 22-0 in the points, and that doesn't look great. But by the time their best point scoring chances were at the start of the season, when Doohan was in the car, and then the Colapinto's first few races. So by the end of the year, of course, as we've talked about, they had effectively given up. So I don't put too much on Colapinto there. I agree with you. He's another hot seat guy, and a guy that I'm just really, the thing I want to see out of him this year is consistency. I think we've seen the highs and the lows of him, even through only about one full season, really. We got the end of 24, and then we got like 2/3 of last season. And we've just seen a lot of ups and downs from him. We've seen some great races, and then we've seen bad qualifying wrecks and just poor weekends. And so I'm fascinated to see where his season goes. He's another wild card for me. I ended up with him at 14th, and just being a little bit higher on Alpine. I could have had him a couple spots lower, but I like where the team is headed, and so I'm going with Cole Pinto at 14th.
Yeah, he's another one of those kind of Lawson guys for me, just in that same kind of vein of drivers. Um, I hope he does well, and that little interaction that kind of made waves from Drive to Survive, actually, kind of you don't really hear too much from Colapinto, just like how he is like behind the scenes. But I think that uh, the fact that he was willing to test things on his car just to get the improvements, even though that he knew where they were at by that point last year, and that they weren't really going to score a lot of points anyways, just still trying to grind out and make things better for the team. So I do like to see that, but I guess I'm a little bit lower on Alpine as a team than you are for this year. So that's just kind of the reason I have him different. But
Yeah, for me, I'm just a little bit higher on Alpine because they've got that Mercedes engine there
yeah.
this year. They're not dealing with their own power unit, which has been a struggle for them at times. And they do have backing. They do have plenty of resources. They just really wasted them
Mhm.
in the last era, especially towards the end. Last season. So I don't have all the confidence in the world, but I'm more confident in them to not only I think they have pretty good pace at the moment to start the year, and I think they'll be able to do enough to maintain a solid midfield pace throughout the season, given their resources and yeah. So I like them to hang around and be a solid midfield car, maybe even top of the midfield potentially.
Yeah, well, let's continue on that same talking line about Alpine. I have Pierre Gasly P13. Like I said earlier, I think he's at very least top 8 driver in F1, just on raw talent, on raw pace. When he's really on it, it's like really special to watch, because there's something about like when he is just in tune with the car, he just like really stands out on the track, and he's super exciting guy to watch. But like we've been saying, just a little bit lower on Alpine than some of the other midfield teams. So that's why I have him P13. But I do think he's gonna have some really good performances, some really standout moments like we usually see from him. I would love more than anything for him to get in another opportunity where he is consistently at least fighting for podiums, hopefully race wins and stuff, because I would love to see him battle it out with some of the Leclercs, the Russells, the Verstappens, Norris, like some of those guys. I would really love to see him consistently fighting with them. So P13 for Gasly, but nothing against him as a driver. I think he's very, very highly rated in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm always a big Gasly defender. I have him higher than you, so we'll get to him back to
Gasly,
him and Alpine in a bit. Yeah,
Gasly truthers.
exactly. I
Yeah,
think yeah, I'll always remember that 2021 season. It's up there with the all time greats for me. Um, so number 13, I'm going back to Audi with Nico Hulkenberg. I think this is going to be a somewhat close teammate battle, but as I mentioned when we talked about Bortoletto, I just like Nico a lot as a driver, and I think he'll be able to maximize that car given the circumstances. He's going to have some solid weekends. Would love to see another podium. Don't think it's super likely, but I think he'll get some solid points finishes and bring the car home in good shape. So I've got him P13, really hanging right in the middle of the midfield there.
yeah, I like that placing for him. I think last year was probably the highest season of Hulkenberg's career, just what he did in that stake. Um, I have him a little bit higher, but we'll get to him more later for me. In P12, I have Carlos Sainz. I think he's going to lead Williams this year. I think he's one of those guys that just comes in and not necessarily takes over a team as like, oh, I'm the number one driver, everybody else get out of the way, but just makes the team so much better. Uh, I think he's a great guy to have in your organization. He's been around the block so much too that he could just take little bits of oh, I remember this is what Ferrari did well. This is what McLaren did well. This is what Renault was doing good. This is what some of these other teams weren't doing good. He can just kind of take all those and use those as well. So I think he's a great addition, as we saw at the end of last year for Williams, two podiums and then a sprint podium as well. But I'm just not really sure where to place the Williams because of the whole preseason situation, missing out on the Barcelona shakedown, um, having some issues here and there in testing. Just not really sure what to make of Williams as a team. So that's why I have him 12th. But I am also a James Vowles believer, James Vowles truther. So I do think that Williams, even if it is a slow start to this reg set, will be headed in the right direction and should be kind of getting in the right place fairly soon.
Yeah, let's stick right there on the Williams hype train. I've got Alex Albon in 12th. I've was really torn. Honestly,
Mhm.
my first thoughts like a while back, Aston Martin was going to be the toughest team to project, like maybe after the original Barcelona shakedown, because things look brighter for them, although not really bright at that time. It was sort of like, oh, they could be really good, but they could also be terrible. And it's not quite as extreme with Williams, but I do feel like Williams for me now is that team where they didn't really have. They obviously couldn't bring a car to shakedown, which was really a tough beat. And then they come to Bahrain, and the car looks dependable. It looks like it can move around the track fine, but they were not putting up the most competitive times. They were hanging around the lower midfield, and the car seems to be clearly overweight right now. So I was kind of torn as to where to put the two Williams drivers. I've gone a little bit higher midfield because, like you, I trust Vowles. I trust what they're doing at Williams. They've already had massive success there, given where they've been the last decade plus. So for me, I've got Albon 12th. As we get towards the top half of the midfield here, I do wonder kind of where his season is going to go. We touched on this earlier, the battle of these two teammates. I really have no idea how it's going to end up. I just, with the way Sainz finished last year and the feedback he's able to give in the car, he's one of the best at that. Just knowing exactly a feedback strategy, all those things. And so I think he's going to edge out Albon slightly. I've gone Albon P12.
Yeah, I like that. I like that placing for for Williams. So that's a good one there in P12. In P11 for me, I have Ollie Behrman. I think we touched on kind of the gap there between him and Ocon earlier. I do think it's going to be a pretty significant gap. I very highly rate Behrman as a driver. I loved how he came when he came in a couple years back to fill in for Signs for that race in Saudi. He did very well, and then in his first year at Haas, did very well as well. There were some lower moments, but there were some very good moments too. And I think he was one of the brighter stars of that rookie class. He made his rookie mistakes last year. Now let's see what we can do going forward. Build on that, move forward, get your experience, grow. And I think this is going to be a great season for Behrman. All just depends on what that Haas can give him, but I think he'll outperform the car a few times this year and really pop up like we saw for a little bit at Mexico at the end of last year.
Yeah, that's a good shout. I'm about to get to Ollie myself, but first I've got Carlos Sainz in 11th. Like I just mentioned, I think him and Albon's going to be a real battle. Two very solid drivers. Just give a slight edge to Sainz. I think this is going to be a fun season to watch, see the Williams development. And I think Sainz is going to help spearhead that development and take them from a back of the midfield car to a front of the midfield car. So Carlos 11th, would love to see, two podiums last year was incredibly impressive, plus a sprint podium. Would love to see some more of those this year. Don't know if it's in the cards, but maybe if they develop well enough, we'll see how it goes. But I've got Carlos P11.
Yeah, just a little bit more Williams and Vowles. I think James Vowles is like a true leader of men. Like I think he's just a pro's pro. He knows exactly like the right thing to do, and it's just very professional about how he goes about everything. The way he pursued signs got him there, got Albon there. He's gotten a lot of these pieces in the right direction. Two guys who are very talented, and yet he gets them to go to Williams. I know they were kind of in uh, they were in tough places in their career. They kind of had to pick a spot, but at the same time, to get those guys not to wait it out for a better opportunity, go to Williams and build on that. I just have full belief in James Vowles, even though I was a little shocked with how the beginning of this year went with the whole Barcelona thing, because I feel like Vowles and Williams have been preaching that everything has been building to 26, and now that it's here, they were kind of already on the back foot. I didn't like to see that, but I think they're going to get it figured out. And I think they'll be like, I think at the end of this year, we'll be looking at them for that P5 spot amongst the teams and possibly even kind of breaking through up into those top four.
Yeah, I do. One thing I really appreciate about JV is the way he seems to talk to the fans,
Yes.
and it kind of address things head on. We
Mhm.
see a lot of interviews, and this goes for all sports, but we see it in F1 too. We see interviews all the time where it's just the driver going, "Yeah, it was good," blah 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 blah. Nothing really
Mhm.
substantive, but he'll talk about like hey, here's we didn't deliver up to our standards today. Here's the problem. Here's how we're working to
Yes.
fix it. So I really like his leadership style, and that's why I part of why I have faith in him. He's also been in a lot of championship teams with Mercedes, so I've got faith in him to deliver. It's certainly a little disappointing to see them on the back foot to start the season, but I think they'll be in a better place by the end of it.
Yeah, just a true pros pro, I think, and is just putting those pieces together slowly in the right direction. Um, Now let's get into the top 10. In P10, I have Gabriel Bortoleto. I'm very high on Audi, as you could tell by this placement. Um, I don't know exactly why, to be honest. Maybe it's just because I like the livery. I'm not sure. Uh, but I do feel like they had a really solid testing, and it's like I know that they're taking over a team that already existed, but they are a completely new team with their own engine, and I feel like things went overall pretty smoothly in the test. I feel like they put up some decent lap times as well at times, and I just have a lot of faith that this season is going to go well for Audi, along with how things went last year for Stake. When I thought it was going to be like miserable for them. Like they were going to be well behind, just waiting for 26 when the regs change and they become Audi. But I feel like they just got a lot better throughout the season. Last year, obviously delivered the Hulkenberg podium, some good moments for Bortoleto too. So just high on Audi overall. I like their trajectory, and if they have delivered an engine that they've manufactured on their own, and it's just theirs, and it's a good engine, then I think sky's the limit for them. Uh, but they also have the detriment in that having their own engine where it's just them, of no data from anybody else, from their customer teams to rely on. So there is that to go back to as well. But just high on Audi, and I think Bortoleto too. I mean, it was a really solid rookie year. The placement in the driver's standings at the end wasn't, I feel like, representative of how his year went. There were definitely some lows, but there were some really, really high points as well. And I think he is another one of those rookies that is like Behrman and like Hadjar, going to learn from their mistakes last year and be really solid this season.
Yeah, I will say a couple things about Audi. One, I do really like their driver pairing, even though I'm
Mhm.
lower on them as a team. I think Colapinto, or not Colapinto, sorry, Bortoleto being uh, such an established, like such a strong pedigree for a rookie last year, like you said, was not as bad as it looked. He was really solid for a rookie, and I just think he has so much potential going forward. and then you have Hulkenberg, the steady veteran, one of the best in the business. I think those two, it's a great pairing for Audi. And I think the other thing too is they are a team with a lot of potential, and
Mhm.
if everything goes right, they could be top of the midfield. They could even creep higher. Maybe not this season, but in the next couple seasons, there's mega potential with Audi with the backing that they have, and sort of my general midfield conundrum was that I felt the teams that were on the back foot in testing were actually the teams that I had more faith in going forward, that I felt like had more resources and more potential, like teams like Williams and and Audi. Obviously, Audi showed a little more promise in testing, but both those teams I felt like were a little underwhelming in testing, but they have great resources, and I just have a lot more faith in the making of ground. Whereas my number 10 is Ollie Behrman, and I really like Haas look incredible at testing. I am worried though about their development throughout the season,
Mhm.
if they can maintain with their resources compared to teams like Williams and Audi and Alpine. Can they maintain that pace? But really, having Behrman 10th is just a vote of confidence of this guy is the real deal. He's had a great rookie season and has so much potential going forward. I think he'll take care of business this year against Esteban, and I think he'll extract a lot out of that car, especially early in the year. I think it's important for him to rack up points, and I think he'll
Mhm.
be able to do that, hit the ground running pretty early in this season in this set of regs, and set himself up nicely for a season at the top of the midfield.
Yeah, that's a good point about how it's kind of opposite of what you thought you saw in testing with the midfield. I think there's something to be said for teams that are very comfortable with the package they have, just going in, getting those laps, making sure the reliability is all there, just kind of getting their feet under them and getting kind of just warmed up for the season. Whereas some of these other teams, I feel like they might push a little harder just to look at the timing sheet and go, oh, we're, P8 right now in lap time versus, oh, we're like a second ahead of that Williams there. Like, I think there is something to be said about that. Um, and I like everything you said about Audi as well. I think that their backing is what I'm kind of relying on here. They have plenty of resources to go around, being one of the bigger automotive companies in the world, just having that prestige around them as well as a brand, and their driver lineup, the backing and the driver lineup are things that I really love here. So I have Hulkenberg P9. Not going to creep into those top eight. I think that's going to be a separate conversation, but I see him leading the midfield this year. I liked a lot of his performances last year, and I think him paired with a good Audi car, who knows, we might see another podium this year. Not saying it's going to be like every week he's going to be sniffing around there kind of thing, but I think he will have his moments where he really shines, some nice P5, P4 kind of performances on the weeks where the Audi is performing at its best on those tracks that are the best for them. So yeah, I just am very high on Audi going forward and this season. That's why I have them P10 and P9. They're two drivers.
Yeah, this season I think is really a battle of development and how quickly you
Hmm.
can develop, and the quality of development.
Yes.
And Audi does have a lot of potential there to develop, as well as nearly anyone in the field, even some of the top teams,
Yeah.
given their track record in motorsport and the quality of their drivers, the quality of team they've got behind them. Jonathan Wheatley, team principal. So I really do. I do like them long term more than my short term projections would say. For me in P9, I've gone with Pierre Gasly. I think that's one of our bigger discrepancies as far as placement. But we've already talked about. I'm very high on Pierre as a driver. I think he's very underrated, just given that he's gotten a lot of mediocre cars since his Red Bull days when he was pretty young and may not have been ready for that spotlight. I think if he got another chance at a top four team now, he'd be more ready to deliver. And I think the Alpine with the Mercedes engine, there could be some ups and downs. I don't think it's going to be smooth sailing necessarily to P9, but I think Pierre's going to maximize that car and have some really solid races, get some solid points for Alpine this season. I think that's going to be enough to scrap out P9, but if not, I think he'll at least be, I'd be pretty shocked if he wasn't top half of the midfield, just given his quality and the Mercedes engine. I think he was the surest bet for me to be at the top of the midfield.
I love that. I mean, we talked a little bit earlier about how we both love Gasly, and having him P9 just means that there's going to be a lot more instances throughout the season where he is battling for significant points and going wheel to wheel a lot more in moments that matter. So I love that placement. Also, what you were saying about him not having a great car since Red Bull, I think he deserves another shot. Like, I know it wasn't necessarily the best thing, but it also wasn't the worst at Red Bull, and he was also like very, very young at the time. I think he really, really deserves another shot in one of those top four programs. I think his racecraft speaks for itself, and if he does have a P9 kind of run this year in the construct or in the driver's standings, then I mean, I'm not sure, where the openings are going to come from. That's always the problem with F1 is there's only so many seats that can win races, and you got to find yourself in those and take advantage of it when you have the shot. But I think no one really deserves another chance at a top seat more than Gasly, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, this will be year 7 post Red Bull coming up for Gasly.
Yeah.
He's had plenty of time hanging around the midfield. I mean, end of last year was even worse than midfield, but he's had plenty of time hanging around the midfield, and he still managed a race win. He's still, been on podiums, still had some incredible moments. So I think he deserves that chance, and I'm hoping that, I do think there's going to be some movement at the top 4 teams after this season, and I'd love to see him up there as a guy that gets a shot.
Yeah, him, Carlos, and Alex, I feel like are the 3 guys in the midfield that I'm like, those guys deserve to be in a top 4 team because I just think that they're all very, very talented. Let's get to our top 8 now. This is where things get really interesting. Are you ready for it, Sam? Ready to get into the top 8?
Yeah, I've been ready. I'm fascinated to see. I think we're gonna have the same number 8, but after that, I think it's pretty wide open.
Yeah, I feel like number 8 is kind of it's an easy one to put there, and I hate putting him there because I would love to put him higher than this. I think he's a very talented driver, but I have Isaac Hadjar in P8. I love what we saw last season. And I don't think that this is going to be the same level of number 2 driver that we've seen in the past few years at Red Bull. Like, I think that those days are somewhat over, to be honest. Now that we have new management essentially at Red Bull, I think it's going to even out that playing field a little bit more. And then the new regs as well, I think are huge for evening that out and kind of limiting that gap between P1 and P2 for the Red Bull team. You're still going to be behind Max because he's Max, but I don't think it's going to be like an embarrassment like it's been for Perez the final couple years of him at Red Bull, or Yuki or Liam in his short time. So I think Hadjar's going to have a great year. Hopefully some podiums, maybe a win, who knows? But I don't think he's going to be better than the 7 ahead of him. And that's not taking anything away. I think it's going to be a solid year, but it's tough to crack into those top 7 guys when you look at those names.
I was really hoping that you were going to throw me a curveball there. Be like, oh, I hate to do it. This guy's a great driver, but I had to put Max P8. Like,
Yeah.
just something
No.
really. I didn't know, but I expected Isaac P8, and I've got him there as well. I do think it's going to be a respectable P8. I think it's going to be, like you mentioned, I think between the change in regs and the change in leadership at Red Bull, really the whole organization has kind of been gutted and started over. I think that sets up nicely for the second driver role to be kind of redefined. I mean, it is always going to be a second driver role to Max as long as Max is at the team, but I do think Isaac is in a better position here than some of his predecessors, and I think he'll scavenge together a solid season. There's going to be some ups and downs. I don't think it's going to be a clean eighth place, but I think he will be solidly ahead of the midfield and will kind of get back to a respectable Red Bull second driver performance.
Yeah, I agree, and I don't think Red Bull want that gap between Max and whatever the second driver, whoever the second driver is, to be as big as it has been. I think they're looking bigger. They're looking to get back into constructors fights as well as driver championship fights. I don't have them quite getting there this year. Spoiler, but I do think that that Hadjar is going to kind of get back into a respectable zone for the second driver's seat at Red Bull. And I think you said it great when you said redefine that second seat. I think he's gonna do that this year. In P7 for me, I know I said last week that McLaren's a team that's kind of flying under the radar, defending constructors champions. And I still do think they're gonna be very solid this year. I know they said that they are didn't have the full on McLaren or I'm sorry, the full on Mercedes engine during testing. They weren't really going all out like they could have been. That being said, I have Oscar Piastri P7. I just think that I have a lot more faith in Ferrari and Mercedes right now than I do in McLaren. I still think they're going to be really solid. I think we're going to see wins out of both of their drivers. Going to see plenty of podiums, but I just don't think it's going to be quite the level that we saw the past couple years. And on top of that, we've seen what's happened with that team when there is any sort of challenge between someone from the outside. And I think there's going to be a lot more outsiders challenging them this year. So I'm not sure they're ready for that quite yet to take on, two teams, two drivers instead of just Max, which they almost crumbled that one away as well. So I think it has to do a little bit with McLaren as an organization as well as just their car not quite being there.
Yeah, I started smiling when you said that because I was in the same boat. Uh, not to slander McLaren. I just think I really the math to me came down to I trust Mercedes and Ferrari's cars more right now. I like their cars more at the moment, and I trust Max Verstappen as a driver more
Yeah.
than either of the McLaren drivers. So that's how I ended up. I've got Oscar Piastri in seventh. It's painful for me to put him there. I would love to have him higher, but the competition is so tight up here at the top. And there's certainly a world where McLaren, first of all, there's a world where McLaren actually does have a car that can win races right now. And they've just been very quiet, kept it under wraps very well. There's also a world where they maybe start as the third or fourth best car, but develop well. We've seen that from them as well before.
Yep.
So this is not me saying they're going to be miles off of the other top teams. I just think for me, like I said, Mercedes has been, the talk of the town for a while now, and I really like what they're doing. I really like Ferrari, the innovation that we've seen from them and their driver lineup, and that just kind of leaves McLaren a step behind here, even as the defending champs. So I've got Oscar in P7.
Yeah, we've seen McLaren develop well from the beginning to the end of the season. Like in 23, they were way off the pace to start. By the end of the year, they were battling for wins and for podiums. So, yeah, I think that we could definitely see McLaren take that step in the development race. But I just it could just be testing. You don't know. That's kind of the beauty of this whole thing. But I just haven't seen anything that's really popped from them yet. We've seen the crazy innovations from Ferrari. We know about the Mercedes, race compression ratio thing, which they have that engine as well. Just feels like Mercedes kind of have been talked about highly coming into this reg set. Like they kind of know what they're doing with it. And I think the last one played a little bit more into McLaren's favor, which is why I have Lando Norris P6, defending champion in P6 this season. don't think it's going to be like a huge drop in performance. Like we're going to see him bottling race starts again, or uh, I think he's probably actually going to be a better driver this year than he even was last year. But I just don't know if the pace in the car is going to quite be that level. And then similar to what I was saying with Oscar, just the organization as a whole, I'm not sure how they're going to handle a multi-team, multi-car, multi-driver battle for a championship. Not sure they're going to handle that well with two drivers that I think are closer than in performance than Red Bull, than Ferrari, or than Mercedes. So I think that inner team, inner driver battle is going to continue to be an issue. I feel like, to be honest, they would have to prioritize one of them to have a chance for the drivers this year, and just pour all the resources one direction. And I don't see them doing that. So I have their drivers 7 and 6.
Yeah, not to agree again, but I'm in the same boat. And it's kind of just what we just talked about for Lando P6, McLaren being just maybe a half step behind the other top constructors. And I'm very interested to see Lando's development this year. We talked a lot about his mental game, not like a personal mental side, but
Yeah.
his mental
Mhm.
racing
Yeah.
side. And he talked a lot about how he had to, get some distractions out, had to kind of refocus and work on his mentality. And that's what led to some improvements in the latter stages of last season. I'm interested to see now that the pressure's off. He's forever world champion now. So I wonder if that takes some pressure off and he's freer and we see the best that we've seen of Lando going forward. We see a guy who's more willing to, take risks, I guess, or just someone who's not afraid there at the wheel and just ready to go all out at all times. So I am interested to see this Lando season, and if the car's better than we think, he could be right back up there
Mhm.
fighting at the top again. But for now, I've got him P6, just ahead of Oscar.
That mental driving side could go the other way too, where this championship has maybe allowed him to relax a little too much and let some of those distractions back in, to where he says, I've done it. I'm a champion. I can kind of, I know how to handle it maybe a little bit better, and some of that stuff maybe comes back. I'm not sure. I hope it doesn't. I feel like he made a lot of positive progress last season in the right direction. I hope he keeps it up and keeps, trying to get more world championships, because I enjoyed having him up there battling last year. So who knows how that'll play out? It'll definitely be interesting. I think that's kind of always been the main thing with Lando, at least the last few years, is how he handles the mental side of it. I think this year will be no different. It's going to just be a different mental battle of, how do I handle being the defending champion? Is it a freeing thing, or is it something where I am, freaking out because I feel like I am just not, doing my job as a defending champion, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I agree with you that it could go either way. I do worry. My only worry would be if they have a bad start to the year and they're clearly not competing for wins. Maybe, it's a little easier to check out when you've already won a title. But
Yeah.
I think he'll stay locked in for this year and be competitive, even if they're not a race winning car all the time.
The other thing about Lando and McLaren, and this is kind of making me not rethink, but rethink a little, is how I feel like Lando has talked very positively about this car, and how it races, versus what we've seen from like Max talking about it, what we've seen from Lewis talking about it a little bit. He seems to kind of enjoy it, and seems to be embracing that. So if that stays, I mean, I could see him being a little higher, but and that could be, showing his hand a little bit as well about how he feels McLaren have gotten these regulations, if they've got it right or if they've got it wrong. Maybe he's just giving a little bit of a nod, like, hey, our cars is going to be very good, and I'm happy with how this car feels under these new regs.
Yeah, I think it's just been impossible to get a read on anyone in McLaren.
Yeah.
I think I'm kind of taking Zach for his word. You know, he said we're going to be in the top four, but we're not going to be the best car straight off, and that's kind of where I think they're going to be. But they've really, they've really kept their cards under wraps more than anyone. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, we might not reach the world champion hotline at the end of this season. Top five in fifth position, I have Kimi Antonelli. I think that he is an extremely talented young guy. We saw him make some pretty big mistakes, in the middle of last season. There were some times where it didn't look great. There were some times where it did look really good in Miami Sprint qualifying, Brazil later on in the year. There were some times where it looked really good. Um, I just think that I think he might need one more year. He's the youngest of the rookies. He was the youngest rookie ever in F1 last year. He was still in high school for part of last year. I know we talked about that plenty last season. So, I think everyone's a rookie, right? They were, or all of the drivers that were rookies last year are all on the same page again this year of this is their second season. But I think it's a little different for Kimi compared to the rest of the guys in that same class because he is so young and he just doesn't have quite as much just experience behind the wheel in racing just due to his age solely. So I think that might play a little bit into him being slightly behind the ball this year for the entire season, like the consistency wise compared to George. But I do think there'll be moments where he pops up and shows what the future holds, because I still think he has that future world champion kind of prodigy type of ability that Toto brought him in to have.
Yeah, I'd love to change it just for the sake of the pod, but I also have Kimi P5.
Dang it.
I
We're
yeah,
just same exact top 8.
we'll see. I'm getting kind of worried now,
I know
but
I am too.
but yeah, I've got Kimi P5. I think Norris and Piastri are both more polished drivers than Antonelli at this point, but Kimi does have so much potential. We saw it in flashes last year, even though Russell was clearly the better driver. We'll get to how highly I think of Russell later, but Antonelli, I think, still put in a really solid rookie performance in comparison. And looking forward, I think he's going to miss out on some points occasionally. Just having the not a sophomore slump, but maybe some rookie moments still. But I think he's going to be competitive. He's going to get some podiums, maybe even his first race win, which would be great to see. And I feel really strongly about the Mercedes car post ground effect era, and I like Kimmy to be a solid P5, not really fighting for the title, but potentially contributing to Mercedes constructors title, or at least constructors challenge.
Yeah, I think he'll have his moments. I think we both are in agreement of that. It's just going to come down to the consistency thing, and George and his experience, I think, is just going to outshine Kimmy there. But there will be times when Kimmy is faster this year. I think that's a given. Certainly, there'll be races where he outclasses George. Just don't think he's going to be able to keep it up for the entire season.
Mm-hmm.
In P4, I have Lewis Hamilton. Judging by your reaction, I think you may have him here as well. I think what we've seen in the off season, we've seen a lot of Instagram posts saying, I am back. I'm a new man. I have rediscovered myself. You guys, I got off on a wrong path. I didn't remember who I was. You guys brought me back, remembering who I am. And I do think that he will be better than last year. Like, I'm not saying that that's a complete farce, but I feel like we have had that, like, almost those exact things from him before. And then, like, 3 races in, it's just like, it's very down in the dumps and not good. I do think it's a little different this year. I think the new regs help with that. I think he's got some excitement from that perspective. I don't think the last reg set was obviously one that he enjoyed. I think this is a car that uh, is more enjoyable for him to drive, a little bit looser. So he's kind of got to handle it a little bit better, and I think that's what Hamilton's good at. I think we'll see him win a race for Ferrari this year. I do think we'll see him on the top step at some point, just not as much as we will for Charles. I just don't think he has that same level that he can hit, every week at this point in his career. It'll pop up here and there, and we will see vintage Hamilton. We'll see him, winning for the prancing horse, but just not to a championship level.
Yeah, you guessed it. P4 Lewis Hamilton. I I really wanted to just go all in and throw him higher up, even if he wasn't winning the title, just maybe ahead of Charles. Really buy into, like you said, all the Instagram posts, all the hype. And I do think it's going to be a better performance from Lewis Hamilton this year. I think, the ground effect era clearly did not treat him well, and he really struggled with that era of cars compared to his past performances. But now we're beyond that. And, even other drivers, even Alex Albon said he thinks Lewis could be great under these regs once again, just with his driving style. So I think it's possible that we see a Hamilton renaissance this year. I do think it'll be closer. I just think last year was such a thorough, Leclerc really, destroyed him last year. I mean, 18-3 on races and nearly 100 points deficit between the two of them. And, I rate Leclerc very highly. The last few years of Hamilton, we've seen him lose to Leclerc and then, was kind of back and forth with George, didn't really dominate that rivalry after the first season. So I want to see it from Lewis. It's obviously still in there somewhere. He's, the most decorated driver of all time. And I was thinking about this earlier today. I don't know where you have Charles, but just this idea of, I think they are the most fascinating team. Last year we saw the papaya rules. We saw McLaren go back and forth deciding, which driver to prefer or not to prefer. I'm fascinated to see if Ferrari are the top team or they're 1-2 fighting with someone else, and they feel like they need to prioritize a driver to win a driver's championship. I'm fascinated by that. Do you pick the golden boy, Charles, who has brought you here, who has been with you through the ups and downs and all the building of this car, and has been the promised one for a long time to bring Ferrari back to the top, but then you have to deny 7-time champion, going for his 8th most decorated driver of all time, Lewis Hamilton. And likewise, if you go Hamilton, if you sort of give him preferential treatment, then you're denying, the Ferrari poster child. So I just think that's such a fascinating driver battle, and I'm hoping it'll be much closer this season, because I think that's still my favorite pairing on the grid, despite last season's not really being as close as expected.
That's going to be like them Ferrari, if they have to make that choice, will just I think completely melt down some of the F1 community, because it's almost an impossible choice for them, of the guy who's been with them forever, who is their golden boy, who is essentially the face of Ferrari at this point, in Charles Leclerc, or arguably the greatest of all time. I mean, and a guy who has plenty of fans himself and has brought a lot of fans over to Ferrari as well. I mean, that is a very, very difficult choice that they may have to make, and way more interesting than, and not to take away from Lando and Oscar, but way more interesting than that decision that the McLaren had to make, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think Lando and Oscar, Lando was kind of supposed to be a bit of the chosen one for McLaren, supposed to be the leader, and that one really got interesting because Oscar got off to such a hot start. That's really what kind of made that a fight. And yeah, this one's just is such a fascinating decision. I hope that they have to make it. I hope that they're good enough
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
have to at least consider it. And hopefully there's no papaya rules on this one. They just
Yeah.
uh, yeah, we get to see the best of both of them.
Yeah. Let's pray for no horse rules. I guess that's what we'll have to call it. I don't know what they're gonna call it. Um, the other thing with Lewis too that I find interesting is the progression of the last few years, right? Where it's the new reg coming off 2021 and that whole loss, the new regs, they don't look great under that. So then it's, oh, we're fighting for towards next year. Hopefully we'll be better. Then it's, well, hopefully it'll be better at Ferrari. And then it's kind of the same thing. It was, at the middle of last year going into this year of, well, hopefully it'll be better under the new regs. I feel like he's been playing the stance for like 4 years now where it's, hopefully it's next year. And I don't think that there's anything really to like point to for next year if he has to make this same kind of decision again of what do I do moving forward, because he's not going to be changing teams, he's not going to be changing regs. It's just kind of, you can hope for the development of the car, but it's kind of going to be what it is, after this year. So it'll be really interesting to see how that plays out, if they're good or if they're not good, what his mindset kind of shifts towards there.
Yeah, there's been a lot of mental up and downs on track, it seems like, for Lewis these last few seasons. Like you said, just kind of postponing, we'll get there, we'll get there. And I'm sure that it really broke him going to Ferrari and struggling,
Mhm.
especially given how good Ferrari was in 2024, to see them blow up the car for
Yeah.
one season and that car to struggle is it's a pretty brutal beat. I'll always wonder what it would have been like if they just upgraded the 24 car, what last season could have been. But
Yeah.
alas, here we are, and here's a new opportunity, and they look to be in a better position now going into this season.
Talk about one of the most bizarre decisions that never really gets talked about in F1. That decision to just completely take apart that 2024 car that almost won the constructors and start fresh for the first year of Lewis. I mean, yeah, that seemed like a bizarre decision at the time, and it turned out to be one. Let's get to our top three now. The main event. In P3, I have Max Verstappen. I would have loved to have put him P1. It would have. I feel like it was so hard not to, actually, even though I don't think they're gonna have the best car just because it's Max. And like after what we saw last year, the second half of last year, I was like, eh, even if it's like remotely close, I mean, you're gonna have to kind of put him there. But I think it's a little bit different because this car, I don't think he loves, and that's not necessarily the Red Bull. I think it's like this type of car, this regulation of car. I don't think he loves, and I think that is going to play a significant factor. I think he's still going to be Max. I think it's going to be hard for anyone to outrace him. Um, but I think that just plays a role mentally. And, it seems like it's all kind of love of the game stuff for Max at this point. And if that kind of love is taken away a little bit because of the regs, I think that might have a pretty significant impact. Um, and I'm probably going to look like a fool because he'll probably win the drivers championship when this is all over, and I'll look like an idiot for putting in P3 and saying all this stuff. But I just think that I do think that this is going to be a three-way battle between the three guys we have left, between Max, Charles Leclerc, and George Russell. I'm not sure which way it's going to go. I think it could go any way between those three. I think Leclerc and Russell are going to have the car advantage. I think Max is going to have the Max advantage. I just don't know if it's going to be quite enough in the end this year.
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm happy to report that for the first time we have a difference in our top 8. I was getting
We
very,
did it.
very, very
We
worried
did it.
there. Um,
Yeah, it could have gotten bad quick. I mean, it already
yeah,
has, but
yeah, I'm sticking down the path where I was at P4, P3. I'm gonna go with a Ferrari Golden Child and NASCAR Truck Series champion Chuck Leclerc. Uh, for me,
I should have worn my Chuck Leclerc shirt tonight. I was going through my clothes the other day and I found that again. And I was like, oh my gosh, I still have this.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah, I got
man, I
him.
should have worn that.
I got him sitting P3. I think it's going to be, like I mentioned, a closer battle with Hamilton, but I do have him coming out slightly ahead. I think he's going to nab a couple race wins this year, and I really do like Ferrari, what they're doing. I think we might have mentioned this on the last pod, but it's sort of a I just have to see it to believe it with Ferrari that if they had a different logo, different colors, maybe I would have them in first. But for me, I've got to see it to believe it, and I think it's going to be closer to the years that we saw in 22 or 24, like some better seasons for Ferrari, not last year being in the wilderness, but I think it's still not going to be quite enough. I've got Charles Leclerc sitting in P3, but like you mentioned, not too far off my top two.
I don't know how you can have him P3 when I mean he's battled guys like Chandler Smith, Ty Majeski, Ben Rhodes, Lane Riggs. I mean Caden Honeycutt. Those are some big names, and he's outdueled them all. So if he can do that against those guys, I don't see how any of these guys stand a chance. I mean Max Verstappen or Lane Riggs. Who do you have?
Now you just have me wanting to see Max in the Truck Series.
Gosh, that would feed families too. That'd be awesome.
Oh, he'd have a great time out there.
I think he would actually. Like I think he would legitimately enjoy that. Um all right, well, we're getting to the top two. And two will give away one. So I will just say in P2 I have Charles Leclerc. I've gone for Leclerc in P2. I really wanted to put him P1. I really wanted to do it. Him and Max were the two. I feel like a lot of people are going Russell. I wanted to go Leclerc here, and just go different. But Leclerc and Ferrari burned me last year. I got did dirty by those guys because I mean, talk about looking like a fool. I was way off with that prediction. So I went with a different direction. I still think Charles. I mean, obviously P2, he's gonna have a great year, right? But I think that the Mercedes is just going to be a little bit better. I think it's going to be an epic duel between Verstappen, Leclerc, and Russell. Like I think it's going to be really close between those guys. And if it is a three-way battle, I think it's going to be one of the best that we've seen in F1 in a while, a championship battle. Because I mean, we obviously know about Max and George; they have their beef. You throw in Leclerc, who's obviously got the Ferrari following behind him, a golden boy of sorts, the golden child. I think that those three just going at it is going to be so much fun. Uh, but I don't think he's going to be better than what Russell's going to be able to do in the Mercedes in the end. So I have Leclerc P2 and Russell in P1.
Well, we'll get to our world champion here in a second because I have Max Verstappen P2. I've got to see.
Both have Russell.
Yeah, it's a little more. I want to see a little more from the Red Bull, but man, I couldn't have Max any lower than P2. I understand the thinking behind having him P3, and I do think I do think Charles and George are the closest you can get to challengers for him on the
Mm-hmm.
grid, in my opinion. Like if they were all in equal cars
Mm-hmm.
at this current moment, you know,
Yep.
I think those are the two closest competitors. So yeah, for me, I was kind of I just couldn't have him too low. I just think the car, if it's the third or fourth best car, he'll be able to get great results out of it and be in the title hunt. But I just don't think he'll have enough. I think Russell's a good enough driver and will be in the best car. And I think that will be enough to get him over the line for P1.
Yeah, well, we both have George Russell as the 2026 F1 champion. Congratulations to Max Verstappen on winning it, by the way. You're now a 5-time world champion. But we'll see how it goes. I think that there's an argument for all three of those guys, and that's why I think it's going to be such an interesting season. Um, I hope it plays out the way I'm thinking, where these three are battling, race in and race out, and it's kind of going back and forth, the lead of the championship. That's my dream. Like you said, I think Verstappen, Leclerc, and Russell are like the top three on the grid in terms of talent right now. Uh, that's not to take away from the other guys. That's just kind of what I think, and what I think a lot of people are have in their minds as well. So super excited to see how this plays out. But yeah, George Russell, I think it's going to be his year. I think what we saw last year was that consistency that's been missing a little bit. I think he stepped up into like a new tier of consistency, and on top of that, with Lewis Hamilton out of the team now, Kimi coming in, he's able to take that leadership role. I don't think they're going to play like a 1-2 favorite outright in public, but I do think that George is where a lot of their focus is going to be for this upcoming championship. So I think having that team backing as well, and what appears to be the best car, I think is just kind of a dynamic duo or trio that's going to be hard to beat by anybody else.
Yep, there's a snake in my boot, and it's telling me Woody from Toy Story, P1. Lock it in, baby. I think.
Woody.
I mean, the does nothing P3 meme becomes does nothing P1 this season. Not that he will do nothing. I think he is, I had him as my number 2 driver of last season, which, was higher than some people, but I just think he was, he's superb. First of all, in his fight against Hamilton there for a couple seasons, was so competitive against one of the all-time greats. And then coming in last season and really taking care of business against Kimi, maximizing the car, having some great performances. And yeah, I just think that, like I said before, I think he's a top 3 driver, and he's going to have the best car. And I think that's enough to get him over the line against Max. I think he's a guy that, outside of Max, he's right there with Charles as most deserving, a guy who deserves to be in a championship car. So I'm rooting for him to do well. I would love to see another new champion just like last year, and I think it's absolutely on the table. GR63 is P1.
GR1. Yep.
Mhm.
GR1 is going to be the new nickname. I wonder what the odds are for the championship heading into the season. That's definitely got to be an interesting mix, because of how, I feel like everyone's kind of had the Mercedes as the top gun coming into the year, but I feel like Max is going to get a lot of the betters, just seeing that name, and after last season too. I feel like Max is going to get a lot of the money heading his way.
Yeah, I have the odds right here. It's George is a favorite, but not a massive favorite, and then Max is number 2, and then Charles and Lewis 3, 4, but they're a little further off.
Yeah,
So that's kind of,
that
I
makes
think
sense. Yeah,
the odds have been pretty consistent as Russell Verstappen, and I think that's what a lot of the the their F1 community. I think a lot of people have those two up top, and also Charles in the mix as well. So, yeah, I'm hoping it's those 3, and obviously Hamilton too would be great. So, seeing those guys, I mentioned earlier, Mercedes versus Ferrari title fight is something that I'd love to see. You throw in Max in there too, and
yeah.
that would be one for the ages. So, I really do think we're in for a great season here. I think there are teams that have got these regs right, but I don't think anyone's going to be so far ahead that it's a boring season or anything. I think we're really going to see some great stuff all around, some competitive races and some fun races.
The championship all depends on the success of Ferrari's rotisserie wing. We'll see how that goes.
Yes, we will.
Let's go through our team predictions real quick. We touched on pretty much why we think a lot of teams are going to be where they are when we went through the drivers, but we'll just go through our 11 to 1. I have Cadillac in 11th, Aston Martin P10. I think Aston Martin's going to get that spot because I think Fernando's probably going to have more points than the three of those other drivers combined between the two teams. Uh, in ninth, I have Racing Bulls. Eighth, I have Alpine. Seventh, Williams. Sixth, Haas. Fifth, Audi. Fourth, McLaren. Third, Red Bull. Second, I have Mercedes actually, and first, I have Ferrari. So I don't have Leclerc winning the the drivers, but I do have Ferrari winning the constructors. So if that's any consolation to the Tifosi out there, then I hope that means something to you guys.
Yeah, I had to get my constructors rankings up here real quick. I've got Cadillac bringing up the rear, unfortunately, but Aston Martin not far ahead of them in 10th. I've got Racing Bulls in 9th. I've got Audi in 8th, Haas 7th, Alpine 6th, Williams 5th, Red Bull 4, McLaren 3, Ferrari 2, and Mercedes in number 1.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. I think Cadillac's going to be a respectable last place.
Yeah, very respectable.
Yeah,
The most respectable.
The most respectable last place we've ever seen. They just play the game the right way. I can already tell we play the game the right way.
Grinding hard for the 1 to 2 points.
Yeah, I think it's going to be great. Even though the car may have tractor tendencies, we'll see.
Yeah,
we'll see.
I think I assume we're about to wrap up here, but can I give you 2 quick quotes before we do?
Absolutely.
So I refreshed the F1 subreddit a couple minutes ago to get some Aston Martin updates, and we've got quotes from both drivers.
No.
Lance Stroll asked to explain what the drivers feel with the Honda engine vibrations. Quote, "It's like being electrocuted in an electric chair."
Of all the things he could say, that's not what I was expecting. Oh my gosh.
And then the Chad Fernando Alonso responds and says, quote, "Vibrations aren't our biggest problem. After a few laps, they become annoying and your hands go numb. But if we're fighting for victories, I could drive for 3 to 4 hours straight."
I mean, you got to give it to him. I mean, yeah, he's a dog, man.
The 25 lap rule is only because they're not going to be any good. If they could win the race, he could do 24 hours. He could be there.
If they were winning races, his nerves would be shot, but he'd be completely okay with it.
Yeah, he'd give up eternal nerve damage for a race win. You got to respect
being in the electric chair. Oh my gosh.
I don't really know how you come back from that one.
Electric chair Aston. Good gravy. I don't know what, like, I feel like we're in uncharted waters here for modern F1 history. Like, I know there's been some really bad teams, but have we seen a team where it's it's so bad it's like a health hazard?
Well, I know, and would there have been teams that are bad that you'd almost expect to be bad? That's kind of like, how are these guys getting 2 cars to the track in the first place? Where's the money coming from, kind of thing? But I mean, they've got Bonneville and Lawrence Stroll running the team, and his endless fortune. They've got Alonso and Stroll behind the wheel. They've got Newey. This is not a team that should be rolling up hoping to complete a race. It's an all-time disaster from the sounds of it so far.
We may need to do a Honda engine F1 deep dive, because they deliver the engines for the Senna McLarens, which obviously good. Then they also deliver the Alonso GP2 engine, also with McLaren. Then they go to Red Bull. They bring some of the best engines and most success in history. then immediately a year later they're bringing an engine that feels like you're in an electric chair. So I feel like the volatility is just all over the place.
I think we need to do some capital J journalism and fly to Japan and start interviewing some people. The questions need to be asked.
Yeah, gosh, it's not good. Like those are not good quote. Why are they even there?
I think the embarrassment of not showing up at all maybe would be even worse in their mind. I don't know.
Maybe like as an organization, but I feel like this is like worse. Like you have your drivers saying these things. Like at least they could avoid that.
I'm wondering what they're going to do for quali. The funniest scenario is they actually qualify well, like they both make Q3 or something, and then they can't finish a race, so they have to park the car.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's going to happen. But yeah,
Dude, if they I know the Cadillac, like it's a new car. If they don't out qualify the Aston, like I'm not sure. I mean, that's not good, certainly. But at least they're gonna finish ahead of them because you think they're gonna finish the race at least.
we assume.
We assume. Yeah. It could gosh. I'm so excited for this race. It could be a complete like it could be a complete horror show. It could be just awful. But it could also be amazing.
As long as no one spins out before the race even starts this year.
Yeah, well, yeah.
We love you, Isaac, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, but at least like like I drove through a puddle. Like you can blame something.
yeah,
This is just like organizational stink.
it's just incompetency. Yeah,
Yeah, not good. Oh, well, that was a good start to the season going through our predicted driver and team standings. We'll be back after Australia, first race of the season, break down everything from there. We may have a lot to talk about. I feel like we will. Hopefully Aston Martin make it to the other side. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, hopefully we see them at the next race.
yeah. I think we'll be doing another podcast before Aston Martin finishes a race, and we're not doing one until after the race. So
I think that says everything you need to know. Well, thank you guys for listening. It was fun, Sam, breaking down all this with you, getting ready for the new season, the new regs, and we'll see you guys next time.
yeah, see you after Australia.